This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Shopify. When I started this podcast, I really did have to figure it out all on my own. Scripts, setup, schedules, logos. It was and sometimes can still be very overwhelming. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out but simplifies everything is such a game changer. And for millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of e-commerce in the US, from household names like Chamberlain Coffee and Rare Beauty to brands just getting started. They make it easy to get started with your own design studio. They have hundreds of ready-to-use templates to help you build an online store that matches your brand style. You can also get the word out like you have an entire marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/justice. Go to shopify.com/justice. That's shopify.com/justice.
You have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today I'm discussing the case of Pepita Redhair. Back in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic was a life-changing event. We navigated uncharted territories and tried to predict what our new normal could be. Right in the middle of all of that, Pepita's loved ones were trying to learn how and why she mysteriously disappeared in late March of 2020. Pepita's mother, Anita, dropped her off at her boyfriend's home in Albuquerque, New Mexico on March 24th and never saw or heard from her again. In the following weeks, Pepita's family tried to find her, but they received very little support from law enforcement or the media, who were all dedicating their time on the global pandemic as it impacted New Mexico. Unfortunately, with this lack of support came a lack of answers, and her family is still searching for the truth today. This is the case of Pepita Redhair. It's March of 2020, and 27-year-old Pepita is living with her boyfriend Nick and his parents in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But that's not where she grew up. Pepita was born on August 4th, 1992 in Gallup, New Mexico. And when she was 5 years old, she moved to Crown Point with her parents and 4 older siblings. Crown Point is a small town on the eastern edge of the Navajo Nation reservation. And when I say small, I mean the population was just shy of 3,000 residents. It's been described as a place where everyone knows everyone. Now, Pepita's family has described her as a smiley, friendly person with a big heart. They've also said that while she was growing up, she was a very active kid who didn't like to sit still. She was creative and loved to draw, write, and paint. She also started skateboarding at just 10 years old, and that carried on well into her adult years. After graduating from high school, Pepita took classes at Navajo Technical University in Crown Point. She was interested in becoming an engineer or a teacher, which really was fitting for her because she loved kids. But after a while, Pepita decided that she wanted more than what Crown Point could offer her, and she chose to move 2 hours away to Albuquerque. Going from a small town to the largest city in the state may be a tough transition for some, but Pepita seemed to do well. She got a job at Hot Topic and was accepted into the University of New Mexico. Then in 2016, Pepita began a relationship with a man named Nicholas K. He goes by Nick. It's unclear how they met, but we do know that the relationship progressed pretty quickly. Just 6 months into dating, Pepita moved into Nick's house where he lived with his parents. And at first, the relationship seemed to be going well. According to Pepita's older sister Shelda, the couple was very affectionate. She recalled seeing them hug a lot and saying "I love you" often. Pepita had even asked Shelda for details about traditional Navajo wedding ceremonies. It seemed like things were pretty serious. In the 2022 episode of Disappeared, Shelda explained that Nick made Pepita all kinds of promises for their future. He said he would get a job to provide for her and would get the two of them their own house, but he never delivered on those things. Then, somewhere along the way, it became clear to those around Pepita that the relationship had become abusive. Eventually, Pepita admitted to her mom, Anita, that Nick had hit her. She said that sometimes he got out of control while drinking. Anita, Shelda, and other relatives tried to encourage her to leave, but as we know all too well, it's not always easy for victims of domestic violence to leave their abusive partner. Unfortunately, the violence in the relationship didn't stop, and on February 6, 2020, police were called to Nick's home. The local news station KOB4 ran a special segment on Pepita's case, and during it they aired the portion of the body cam footage during this call. In it, Nick is yelling at Pepita as the officers walk into the home, but he stops once they approach them in the living room. Pepita tells the officers that they're just working things out. Nick, who appears to be very intoxicated, rambles on to them about how he's overprotective and gets jealous. A female officer pulls Pepita aside and speaks to her for about 3 minutes, but this body cam footage was never made public, so we don't know exactly what was said. What we do know is that officers left the scene without any charges being pressed, but they did order Nick to leave the house for the night. Then, just 4 days later, on February 10th, Pepita was hospitalized. On the official paperwork, assault victim is listed as the reason for the visit. But that's really all we know. As of this recording, we don't have any information about the altercation that may have led up to this, nor are there any details about the injuries she may have been treated for. What we do know is about a month after this, Pepita came to her mother's home in Crown Point. And this wasn't abnormal. She would often go back and visit her family. She went back so often, in fact, that her mom kept her room exactly the same for her. But this visit was different. Anita says that Pepita came to her home with a black eye and busted lip. She said that Nick had hit her and she wanted time away from him. But on March 24th, Pepita wanted to go back to Albuquerque. Anita already had to make a trip into the city to visit her son. When Pepita found out she was going there, she asked if she can get a ride to Nick's house. Now at this point, Anita begs her to stay. By then, the COVID-19 pandemic was raging through the U.S. Anita was hoping that Pepita would stay at her home in Crown Point so they could do lockdown together. But Pepita insisted on going back. She told her mom that she loved Nick and felt like there was nothing for her in Crown Point. So that afternoon, when Anita gets in the car to head to the city, Pepita gets in the car too. Pepita's niece also came along for the ride, and according to Anita, they spent that time together just chatting and giggling. They stop at a McDonald's to get some food, and then they go to Nick's house. When they get there, Pepita asks them to stay parked outside. She wanted to go into the house first before bringing her stuff in. So Pepita goes in, and after a few minutes, Anita asks her granddaughter to go knock on the door and see what's going on. At this point, it's getting late, and Anita has to head back home. Eventually, Pepita comes back out with Nick, who Anita says appears intoxicated. According to an interview she did with KOB4 News, Anita said she told Nick that day, quote, "Please take care of my daughter. Don't be hurting her," end quote. Then Anita pulled away from Nick's house, not knowing it would be the last time she would ever hear her daughter say, "I love you." The next morning, Anita checked her phone and there was no text from Pepita, which was very unlike her. Even though they lived miles apart, Pepita kept in constant contact with her mom and siblings. She would send a good morning text to her mom every single day. But on March 25th, there was nothing. Anita immediately knew that something was wrong. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Hers. Losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off is where it gets really frustrating. That's why Weight Loss by Hers now offers access to the FDA-approved Wegovy pill and the FDA-approved Wegovy pen. Wegovy is designed to help you lose weight and keep it off. If you're not familiar with Hers, everything is 100% online. They'll connect you with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is even right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Weight Loss by Hers goes beyond medication by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team. And they have tons of in-app lifestyle and nutrition tips, like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. If you're looking for a personalized treatment plan, I definitely recommend checking out Hers. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/crime to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/crime. forhers.com/crime. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Quince. It is summer in Phoenix, y'all, which means every single day it's getting hotter. That also means a completely different wardrobe for me. And Quince has exactly what I need. Breathable linen, soft organic cotton, washable silk, all the luxury without the markup. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. And it's not just clothing. Quince has really become a destination for elevated essentials across home, kitchen, bedding, and beyond. You guys, I feel like I've tried every category across Quince. I've had their washable silk pillowcases. I've had items for my home. I've had travel accessories, purses, and of course, a ton of clothing. But what I reach for every single day in the summer are my Quince linen dresses and my cotton tank tops. Not only are they lifesavers, but they just look amazing. Especially my linen dresses. I can throw them on with a pair of wedges and instantly look polished. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. After not hearing from Pepita for 2 days, Anita finally called Nick on March 27th. But his response did the opposite of easing her concerns. He said Pepita had left, and he didn't know where she was. Now, we do know that sometimes she would leave Nick's house when things got too heated. Pepita once told Anita that she had a friend who she would stay with whenever she needed somewhere to go. But even when Pepita left, she always kept in contact with her mom. Again, Anita knew that something was deeply wrong with this situation, and she wasn't going to just take this answer and move on. She immediately called the Albuquerque Police Department to ask for help. But as we hear all too often, they didn't take the situation seriously. They gave Anita all the excuses we've heard before. She's an adult, she can leave if she wants to, she'll probably turn up soon. Knowing that she was on her own, Anita got to work. She printed up flyers, made the 2-hour drive to Albuquerque, and began walking around the city. When she still couldn't find her daughter, she went back to the APD. They were once again dismissive and told her to go to the Navajo Nation Police Department to file a report. Which, if you're like me, you might be thinking that doesn't make a lot of sense, because Pepita didn't live on the Navajo reservation in Crown Point. Anita felt the same way, but wanting any help from authorities that she could get, she gave them a call. And as expected, they told her to go right back to the APD. Once again, they were not helpful. Anita later said that they didn't take her seriously because she didn't live in the same home as Pepita. In an interview with KOAT News, she also said, quote, "They said that my daughter was a drunk. They assumed that she was gone and that she was not important." End quote. To complicate things even more, COVID-19 restrictions were now greatly impacting New Mexico and the rest of the U.S. Police departments were changing procedures, face-to-face meetings were limited, news stations were focused almost entirely on the pandemic, and resources were stretched thin. But this didn't stop Pepita's family. Her sister Shelda also took action. On March 28th, she went to the home of Nick's family, the last place she knew Pepita to be. Now, it's important to note that the house is surrounded by a large metal gate made of cement and iron, so she's not able to knock directly on the door. Basically, she stands outside of the gate yelling for Pepita. She says that someone inside the home closed the blinds but never came out to speak with her. And of course, during all of this, Anita was still calling and texting Pepita's phone. That's when, on March 30th, something extremely concerning happened. Anita finally received a response back from the phone. Only it wasn't Pepita. A man texted Anita to say that he bought the phone from someone named Darren for $30. Now, obviously, this was terrifying to Anita. She explained to him that it was her phone before she gave it to her daughter, who was now missing. She even offered to buy the phone back, but when she tried to coordinate a time to meet, he stopped responding. So Anita reaches back out to Nick, and while he doesn't give a lot of details about the phone, he does tell her a new story. He says that he and his father had gone to a local Circle K on March 27th, and that when they got home, Pepita was just gone. With police refusing to help, all Anita and Shelda could do was keep their boots-on-the-ground investigation going. They kept in the area talking to Nick's neighbors, and while some of them knew who Pepita was and remembered her for being friendly and kind, no one had seen her. Then in early April, her family coordinated their own grid search in the nearby West Mesa. You might remember that name from when I covered the unsolved West Mesa murders back in 2025. Once again, Anita did ask for assistance from the police department, only to be told no. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything during the search. But as we see time and time again with families, they persevered. They posted flyers at bus stops because Pepita frequently rode public transportation. They also had kind of this ingenious idea of passing out flyers along with candy and water to get people to take them. And it worked. One day they were handing out flyers in the city when someone approached them. This person told them that Nick was telling people that Pepita had recently passed away from an overdose. And this wasn't the only rumor they heard around this time. They got multiple phone calls from people saying that they saw Pepita all around the city. Anita and her family checked out every single lead, but Pepita was never there. Then, one day, Anita received a call from an anonymous woman who said that Pepita was at a place called City Park. She abruptly hung up before giving any more information. So Anita and Shelda drove to the only city park they knew of. But when they arrived, the only people there were a couple sitting on a bench. And Shelda did approach them, but the woman definitely wasn't Pepita. She showed them a flyer, but they said that they hadn't seen her. They weren't ready to give up on this lead, though. Shelda got onto Google Maps and typed in City Park. That's when she found a location with the same name that appeared to be a hotel. So they got back in the car and drove over there. And when they got to the hotel, they later described having this uneasy feeling. When they turned into the parking lot, they saw a man on a bike with a walkie-talkie who stared at them as they pulled in. As they drove around, they saw two more men, also on bikes with radios intently watching them. Then they drove near a line of vans, all with tinted windows and all different state license plates. It was definitely a sketchy situation, but unfortunately it did not result in finding Pepita. But this really opened their eyes to a new alternative to what could have happened to Pepita. They later said that this was the moment they began to consider sex trafficking as a possibility. And while Anita, Shelda, and other relatives continued searching, they received a tip with heartbreaking results. They got a call from someone saying they saw Pepita at a grocery store. So Shelda immediately dropped what she was doing, left work, and rushed to the area. While she was driving up to the store, she passed someone walking that she thought was Pepita. She immediately parked her car and began running to her. When she yelled out, the woman turned around and Shelda's heart sank. The woman looked exactly like Pepita, but she was a little bit taller with longer hair and didn't have the distinct moles on her chin like Pepita. Shelda apologized and said that she was just looking for her sister. And this is what's even more heartbreaking. The woman explained that she knew who Pepita was because she had already been approached about possibly being her. In that moment, Shelda realized that not only this call, but possibly other calls were likely attributed to this woman and not her sister. She later recalled the pain she felt when she had to tell her mom that this woman was not Pepita. It was definitely a setback, but they didn't allow this to defeat them. And it was around this time that something happened that should have forced the authorities to finally activate their search for Pepita. On April 16th, after weeks of searching, Pepita's family tries something new. They request a welfare check on Pepita at Nick's house. And since the APD was still operating under constraints due to the COVID lockdowns, it's not actually clear if they went out to Nick's home or just contacted him over the phone. But it has been reported that they made contact with him on this day. He told them that he didn't know where Pepita was and hadn't seen her in weeks. And it seems like this may have shaken a few things up, because finally, on April 19th, almost a full month after Pepita was last seen, Nick called the APD to report her missing. And again, the department still wasn't conducting interviews in person, so rather than meeting with Nick to take the report, a detective called him back while sitting in their squad car. So we finally hear from Nick. The detective does ask him why he waited so long to report her missing. And Nick doesn't really give a direct reason. He just says that they'd gotten into a fight that day. He adds that in the past, Pepita would leave when they got into a fight, but he also tells the detective that she would always come back. Nick also claims that he's heard from Pepita. He says that the night before she went missing, the two of them were out when they ran into an unhoused man. He can't remember the man's name for sure. He says it was something like Jeremy or Laramie. But since this man had nowhere to go, Nick invited him to come back to the house to drink with them. Then the next morning, the man left. Nick said that only about 5 minutes after that, he and Pepita started fighting. Then she left. So Nick tells the detective that when he got this text from her, he assumed that she must have been with this man. Then the detective asks if she took anything with her. Nick says no, just the clothes that she was wearing and one of his jackets. Then the detective asks if she took any essentials with her, and again, Nick says no. In total, the conversation lasted for about 11 minutes. Afterwards, the detective did issue a be on the lookout for Pepita. But other than that, it's pretty unclear what other investigative steps may have been taken. Now, eventually, Anita hears about this call. She hears about Nick's story about this man, and she is determined to track down this lead. So Shelda suggests that Anita post on Facebook, letting people know that she's looking for a man who Pepita may have been with named Jeremy or Laramie. And someone actually responds. On June 3rd, 2020, a man named Laramie got in touch with Anita. According to her, Laramie said that he did know Pepita and was friends with her, but she wasn't with him. And Anita says that Laramie told her that he hadn't seen Pepita since March 10th, which was his birthday. According to the story, Pepita had given him a cupcake, and this, for some reason, made Nick very jealous. Laramie says that Nick and Pepita then began to argue, and as he walked away from them, Nick struck her. But I do have to say that during our research for this episode, we found different accounts that conflict with this version of events. KOB News reported that Laramie told a detective that he may have seen Pepita at a Walgreens on March 27th, and that's when she gave him the cupcake. Then he said that he watched her get on a city bus with two men he didn't know. Obviously, these are two completely different circumstances, and you may be thinking that it should be pretty easy to confirm which story is true, or at least go back to Laramie and figure out what happened. But unfortunately, it appears that Laramie passed away in September of 2021, and it's unclear how many follow-up conversations, if any, that law enforcement was able to have with him. Now, KOB also reported that investigators looked into reports that Pepita may have been seen after March 27th. According to their reporting, one bus passenger reportedly told investigators that a woman matching Pepita's description borrowed a phone and used it to send a text message. That text was supposedly sent to a man named Antonio, also known as Jimmy. Jimmy later stated that Pepita sometimes stayed with him when she needed space after arguments with Nick. He said that she did contact him on March 27th asking for a ride from Coronado Mall, but when he responded asking exactly where she was, he never received another reply. Jimmy has always maintained that he never met up with Pepita that day. Unfortunately, it is unclear if this was ever connected to the sighting on the bus. And this is really where the trail appears to end. Then, on May 10th, about a month after Nick filed a missing persons report, he finally allowed Pepita's family to come get her belongings. And unfortunately, this was far from a civil meeting. According to her family's private investigator who was kind enough to speak with us for this episode, Anita and Shelda were only met with hostility when they went there. They say that Nick's sister came out and started yelling that what happened to Pepita was Pepita's fault. Then Nick's family started throwing Pepita's possessions over the fence. After this, things seemed to slow down a little, until September 2021, when another young woman named Gabby Petito went missing. Like so many families impacted by true crime, as they watched all the media coverage unfold, they felt conflicting emotions. Of course, they wanted Gabby to be found, but they couldn't understand why their local news station wouldn't feature Pepita's disappearance. Shelda had been begging them for months just to talk about Pepita. Then, to make matters impossibly worse, Pepita's father passed away on September 28th. Anita said, quote, "He didn't get that closure. That was kind of the saddest thing as well. I promised him that we are going to find our daughter." End quote. So there were a lot of emotions happening all at once, but they didn't let this get them down. Shelda channeled all these emotions into action. Shelda even later said that she felt it was a sign that the last name Petito sounded so much like Pepita. So they take all this grief and inspiration from the Petito case and hold a rally at Tigway Park on October 3rd. They use this chance to also highlight other cases of missing or murdered Indigenous people. Once again, we have another family turning their pain into action. Anita later spoke about the rally saying, quote, "I was just amazed. But at the same time, it's sad that last year nobody helped me, and I tried so many things." End quote. But this seemed to do it. The rally finally got more eyes on Pepita and caught the attention of local media and officials. A week after the rally, the Albuquerque Police Department requested a formal interview with Anita. And I don't need to tell you just how long overdue this was. It's been over a year and this police department has not interviewed the missing person's mother. And not just her mom, right? This is one of the last people to see Pepita. And while the ball was finally rolling, nothing still seemed to happen. In November 2022, a little over a year after the rally, the Attorney General's office announced that it would be taking over the investigation. But they didn't give a specific reason as to why. Later, it was moved again to a specialized unit working within the County District Attorney's office. And according to statements from District Attorney Raul Torres, investigators obtained warrants, collected evidence, conducted interviews, and collected Pepita's DNA for comparison against unidentified remains. But that's really all we know. As of recording this episode, no arrests have been made, no suspects have been named publicly, and no persons of interest have been officially identified. Really, the last update that I have for you is as of about a month before recording this episode, according to the family's PI, the Albuquerque Police Department took over the investigation again. Where it goes from here is really anyone's guess. More than 6 years later, Anita is still asking the same question she asked in March of 2020. Where is Pepita? And until that question is answered, her family's search continues. Which brings me right to our call to action. Please share Pepita's story. While her case has received some national media attention, her family is pushing for more. And if you are able to financially support Anita's effort, there is a GoFundMe named Missing Pepita Redhair. Anita has talked about how her investigative efforts had to slow down in recent years because of financial limitations. I know that things are hard for pretty much everyone right now, but if you are able to give, I'll have a link to their GoFundMe in this episode's description. Of course, as always, if you aren't able to give, I will ask that you share that GoFundMe. I say it all the time because it's true. Your one share really could make all the difference in bringing answers to Pepita's family. As a reminder, Pepita Redhair is a Native American woman with brown hair and brown eyes. She's about 5'1" and weighs approximately 140 pounds. She has 2 beauty marks on her chin. She also has a few distinctive tattoos: a dinosaur on her right forearm, a koi fish on her left forearm, a butterfly on her shoulder, and the word red hair elsewhere on her body. As of recording this episode, she would be 33 years old today. Anyone with information is asked to call the Albuquerque Police Department at 505-768-2020. But, as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. This episode contains writing and research assistance by Jessica Quaz. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppies, Popcorn and Heber, are in the room. Let's go right into the case. Now, I do think it's important to discuss overall how COVID impacted these cases. I mean, right, March 2020 is right in the beginning of it all, when people were scared, people didn't know what to do, and really police departments were scrambling. But I don't accept that as an excuse. You can still do interviews over the phone. You can do interviews like they did from the squad car sitting outside. I don't see any reason that this case couldn't have been fully investigated from the jump. So while I do want to lend forgiveness, if you will, for police officers and investigators having to work through the pandemic, especially these newer cases coming in, I don't think that excuses almost any of it. Next, I want to touch on the Gabby Petito of it all, right? Because we talked about this last week with Nancy Guthrie too, and I think it's really inspiring to see how Pepita's family used that, seeing all the coverage and wishing that it was happening for Pepita, and still using that as inspiration. I think that's one part of Gabby Petito's case that isn't talked about enough. I think, we've heard a million times about the media coverage and all the resources going to her case, right? The same with Nancy Guthrie. All the resources appear to be going to certain cases. And I think that that's important to discuss. We've discussed that so many times, right? Every case deserves that amount of resources. But again, I think what's kind of under-discussed is the inspiration that it gives some families. And I get it. It's like this bittersweet thing. You see all that attention, you see all that media coverage, and you think, why not my loved one? But there is an opportunity to take inspiration from that, to see what Gabby's family did, to see what investigators were doing, and really try to mimic that in your own case and say, how can I take that? How can I learn from this situation and apply it to my loved one's situation? But let's go on to media discrepancies, and this case has a lot. Most of that conflicting information is around when the last time Pepita was seen. And I think that's because so many people say different things. Was it a bus? Was it a Walgreens? Was it a Circle K? Now, we did pretty much explain that all throughout the episode to you, and I have to say that Jessica, speaking to the private investigator, was a huge help for this episode. Which brings me to our heroes of this episode, Anita, Shelda, and the rest of their family. And of course, not just for hiring the PI, right? I mean, from day one, they were out there, boots on the pavement, handing out flyers. And again, like so ingenious to hand out the flyers with candy and water to kind of inspire people to take them. I mean, even if they take the candy, take the water, look at the flyer and throw it away, at least they looked at it. I can't tell you how many families go out with flyers and people won't even take them. And I really don't want to dismiss how hard it is to keep up the passion and the momentum in a missing person case when you feel like the police aren't helping you, when you feel like the police aren't on your side. I don't think that there's many things more powerful than being discouraged by the very civil servants that are paid to help you find your missing loved one. The reality that it's all on you or mostly on you and you have to kind of report to them as a formality is horrific. I mean, it's crushing. The weight of knowing that the results could lay all on you to do this in your spare time without any professional experience doing this is terrifying. I think sometimes there's a narrative that families don't want to play nice with law enforcement, that they don't want to be cooperative with law enforcement. But I think it's important to remember that sometimes law enforcement doesn't want to cooperate with families. And you're stuck in this odd place of, do I do nothing so that I don't upset them? Or do I keep going kind of blindly, trying to do the right thing, hoping I'm doing the right thing, even though they won't confirm it? It's just one of the worst places to be in, and I can unfortunately tell you that from experience. So, of course, our heroes of this episode are the people who kept this case moving forward, Pepita's family. But let's go on to our segment of hope. This is from Liam Quinn at people.com, and the title reads, 3 decades after a 73-year-old woman was found dead in her home by family, suspect is arrested. The article reads, Daniel Jolly has been charged with the murder of Maxine Pitomsky. On January 16, 1993, family members of 73-year-old Maine woman found dead in her home in Kittery. Maxine Pitomsky's killing had remained unsolved for more than 3 decades, but authorities have arrested a new suspect. Maine police say they arrested Daniel Jolly, 59, of New Hampshire on Thursday, June 4th. He is charged with murder, the agency says. And it looks like it was a review of the evidence as well as new DNA technology that helped state police reach a breakthrough. Investigators learned that Jolly knew her because he worked for a medical supply company, which provided oxygen equipment and services to her. So really, it looks like this was just fresh eyes on a case, seeing that there was a way that DNA could help. They do the testing, and bam, the perpetrator's found. I made a TikTok about this not too long ago, but I think people don't fully understand how many cases are stopped by just money. Right? Money, resources, time, attention. I think it all boils down to money. Money is payroll, right? Money is a detective having fresh eyes to look at a case like this, having the manpower and resources to be able to do that. Now, as you guys know, I was on the board of directors for a season of justice for years. And that's what we did. We worked with, essentially investigators who would submit applications saying that I think this much funding for this DNA testing would solve this case. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, of course, unfortunately, not every single time, but some of the time we would allocate these funds, they would come back to us months later and say, thanks to that funding, we've now made an arrest. We've now identified this person. We've now progressed in the case somehow. And I think this case is the perfect example of that. So many cases are just sitting, waiting for someone to look at them again. So many cases are sitting, waiting with evidence to be tested with no budget to test it. And that goes the same for unidentified bodies, right? I mean, those people are also just waiting for money for testing in a lot of these cases. So, I mean, not to give you another call to action, not to give you another thing to do, but supporting organizations like Season of Justice really does help move these cases forward. And I mean, really, supporting any organization that pays for testing, supporting, the fundraisers that Othram does. These are things that we've seen directly lead to a solve in the case. So like I always say, we could sit here and listen to these stories all day. But I think the best people, the coolest people, go out and help. They donate, you volunteer your time, you share the episode. Whatever it is, you're getting involved in another way that helps solve these cases. But I'll leave you guys there and just say thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.